I watched a little girl live because someone else died, but no one ever told me she wasn't supposed to. What if the organ transplant you cheered for was never supposed to happen? What if the donor wasn't a donor at all, just a body they silenced? I saw the scars, I heard the machines, I watched the mother cry, and I told her, "Your daughter's in a better place now." But the truth? Her daughter wasn't gone, not yet. And I helped them take her heart anyway. They called it a miracle. They said Kayla was saved. But I know what I saw. That girl on the gurney? She moved her fingers. I stood there, right outside, all three. My hands were clean, gloves off, mask dangling from one ear, and still I felt blood on them. You ever walk out of surgery and feel colder than when you walked in? That day I couldn't stop shivering, not from the AC, but from the silence. Kayla's heart was beating. Her numbers were stable. The transplant had gone perfectly. So why the hell did I feel like we'd just buried someone? "She's alive," I whispered. "She's alive. That's all that matters." But that wasn't true. Not anymore. Because I couldn't unsee what I'd seen on the donor table. The girl they brought in, no ID, no records, just unidentified female, possible DOA only. She wasn't dead. Not when I first saw her. I noticed it as I was checking the vitals. She was prepped, intubated. But something was wrong. The pupils weren't fixed. There was movement in her fingers. Tiny twitches like she was fighting through layers of fog. "Could be spinal reflex," Halverson said. And then he walked out, just like that, like a man who's done this before. But that wasn't a reflex, it was a reaction. I swear to God, she was still in there. I tried to speak up. But what do you say when everyone's already halfway through a miracle? What do you do when your superior, the surgeon you owe your career to, looks at you and says, "Don't ask questions you're not ready to answer"? So I didn't. I scrubbed in. I played my part. And I helped cut out a heart from a girl whose name I didn't even know. After the procedure, I walked into the break room. There was coffee, there were jokes, someone was humming a song from the radio. It all felt disgusting. I sat down, opened her file. There was nothing there, literally nothing. No date of birth, no emergency contact, just a tag. Expedited procurement, priority 1. And a signature. Halverson's. That's when I knew this wasn't a miracle, it was a transaction. She didn't die to save someone. She died because someone else was more important, and we all played our part in keeping that lie alive. I didn't become a doctor to decide who lives. But that's exactly what we did. We looked at one girl and said, "Not you." Then turned to another and said, "You get to wake up." I sat outside Kayla's room the next morning. Her mother was crying, thanking us, saying things like, "God heard my prayers." And I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell her everything. But how do you explain to a mother that her daughter's life came from something that shouldn't have happened? How do you tell her? The girl who saved her kid never gave consent to die? I tried to sleep that night. I couldn't. I kept seeing her face, not Kayla's. The other one. Eyes half open, breath shallow, still fighting. Right before we shut everything off, that wasn't brain death, that was panic, that was life, and we took it away. You want to know what guilt sounds like? It's quiet. It doesn't scream. It just sits with you, long after everyone else has gone home. 2 days passed. I thought maybe I could silence it, push it down, tell myself I didn't see what I saw, didn't feel what I felt. but guilt doesn't go away. It waits, and it whispers, usually in the voice of someone braver than you. It was around 3 a.m. Most of the hospital was asleep. I was staring blankly at the EHR system, Kayla's vitals blinking steadily on screen. Alive, breathing, healing. And then my inbox pinged. No subject, no name, just a message. She blinked. Twice, I was there too. I froze. There's only one person that could mean, only one person who blinked on that table, and only one way someone else would have known. I clicked to trace the sender, internal address, anonymous login. Accessed from Recovery Bay 6. That's when it hit me. Someone else saw her move. Someone else was there, and they weren't okay either. I ran through the corridor, past radiology, feet echoing off tile floors like gunshots. Recovery. Bay 6 was dark. Only the blue emergency light lit the beds in soft shadows, and there she was, head nurse Clara Ruiz, slumped in the corner chair, coat draped over her knees, eyes wide open, watching the ceiling like it might answer for what we did. "Clara," I said. She didn't move. I stepped closer, and that's when I saw it. Her eyes weren't empty. They were full of rage, of something worse than guilt, certainty. "I tried to say something," she whispered. "They told me it was an automatic DNR. They told me not to interfere." I didn't know what to say because I'd heard the same thing, and just like me, she listened. She told me she'd been assigned to the trauma case. She was there when the girl arrived. No family, no ID, but a necklace, tiny, faded initials, LS. "She had a name," Clara whispered. "She had something, but they never checked. They didn't even look." I asked her if she told anyone. She shook her head. "I tried. I told Halverson. He said, 'There are decisions above your pay grade.'" She looked at me, like she was trying to decide if I was one of them. "I stayed after the team cleared out," she said. I watched her, and she blinked. Clara's hands trembled. She blinked, and then they turned off the machine. We were both complicit, but now we were both awake. So I asked the question I'd been too afraid to face. "Do you think they killed her? On purpose?" She didn't say anything. She just nodded. Once. And it felt like the whole world cracked. If she wasn't brain dead, if she had signs of life, then what we did, what I did, wasn't just a mistake. It was something darker, something colder, a decision made by people who needed a miracle more than they needed the truth. That night, I couldn't go home. I sat in my car, keys in hand, engine off. Rain hit the windshield like it was trying to clean something it couldn't reach. Clara texted me once, just one line. "They'll come for me next." I didn't know what that meant. I didn't ask, I didn't reply. Because deep down, I think I already knew. People like Halverson, they don't leave loose ends. You know that sound your phone makes? When you get a hospital alert, that sterile, high-pitched tone, it used to mean life. Now it makes my skin crawl. That morning I got one. Patient inquiry request, level 3. At first I didn't think much of it, just another family asking about a relative. Happens all the time. But then I saw the name, Leah Santiago, and under related individual, Lucia Santiago, age 19, status deceased. There it was, the name we never knew, Lucia, the girl whose heartbeat we stole. I clicked the request details. There were call logs, messages, and a photo, blurry, taken in low light, but it was her, same necklace, same eyes, still alive in the image, time-stamped 48 hours after we'd declared her brain dead. She was alive, and someone was looking for her, her sister. I didn't know what to do. If I reported it, I'd be implicating the hospital, Halverson, Clara, myself. If I stayed silent, Leah would never know. She'd go on searching, while her sister's heart beat inside another child's chest. I wasn't ready for any of it, so I did what cowards do. I waited. Later that evening, Clara found me in the locker room. She looked pale, hands trembling again. They called me, she said someone's asking questions. They want us on the same page, same lie. I asked her if she knew the name. Leah Santiago. She nodded. I saw her. She came to the front desk, said her sister was in an accident. No one gave her answers. Because we erased her. We deleted Lucia before anyone could connect the dots. I pulled up the security feed, found the footage. Leah, standing at the front desk, holding up a picture, crying, begging, and the receptionist shaking her head. No one by that name was admitted, because we had tagged her as unidentified and disposed of her the moment her organs were no longer useful. It wasn't just a cover-up, it was precision, cold, efficient, intentional. I looked back at Kayla that night. She was colouring, a pink crayon in one hand, a hospital bear in the other, alive, breathing, smiling. But when she laughed, all I could hear was the silence that replaced Lucia's heartbeat. What would Leah say if she saw her now? Would it matter? Would she scream? Would she fall to the floor and sob? Or worse? Would she look at me and ask why I didn't stop it? I started to write her a message, just a name, a time, a location. I couldn't explain, I couldn't confess, but maybe she deserved something. Then I paused. Because if I sent it, it wouldn't just be a message, it would be the end of everything. My license, my job, Kayla's transplant, everything we did would be dragged into the light. And I didn't know if I was brave enough for that. That night, I got a call from an unknown number. Blocked ID, but the voice was familiar. You're not as careful as you think, Halverson said. I suggest you stay away from the Santiago file. You're not here to solve anything. You're here to move on. He knew about Leah. He knew about Clara. He probably knew about the message I never even sent. I hung up, hands shaking, mouth dry. And for the first time in my life, I realized this wasn't medicine. This was management, and they were managing a secret. Lucia Santiago wasn't in the system, but her sister was. And that was enough to bring it all down. By the time the police got involved, there was nothing left to find. No body, no file, no trace, just ashes. And even they didn't belong to her. It started with a knock on my door, not the hospital, my home, a detective, plain clothes, badge half shown like he wasn't proud of it. Dr. Morrow? I nodded. He looked past me before stepping inside. We're following up on a missing person report. Lucia Santiago, you're listed in her sister's notes. Leah had named me. I played it careful, just like they taught us in med school. First, do no harm to yourself. I told him I didn't recognize the name, that I work in transplant, that we don't see trauma cases directly. It was all technically true, but his eyes didn't blink. He knew I was lying, and I think I wanted him to know. Maybe I thought he'd push harder. Maybe I wanted someone else to break it open so I wouldn't have to, but he didn't. He handed me his card and said, "If something comes back to you, you call. And then he left, just like that, as if Lucia was a rumour, not a human being. Later that week, I checked the logs again. I needed proof she was ever there, a timestamp, a nurse's note. Anything. But it was gone, not redacted, erased. Even her body had been cremated against protocol, no family consent, no autopsy, just a clerical error on the form, signed by Halverson. I confronted Clara. "Did you know?" I asked. She wouldn't look at me. "They said it was standard," she whispered. "Said it was out of my hands." Her hands were shaking again. She kept rubbing her thumb over her palm, like she was trying to wash something off that wouldn't come clean. I asked her why she didn't say anything. She looked up, and I'll never forget her eyes. "They came to my apartment," she said. "They knew where I lived. They knew my daughter's name." That's when I realised this wasn't about saving Kayla. It never was. It was about protecting something bigger, a pipeline, a system where dying girls become unnamed donors and questions disappear with the smoke. I broke in that night. Not with a crowbar, just a badge, and the lie I'd told 1,000 times. I forgot my notes. Inside the archives, I searched for anything. Backup logs, autopsy schedules, digital residues, and buried deep in the system's metadata, I found it. An export log. Lucia Santiago, ID assigned, tissue match report, cremation order, but one line stood out. "Do not trace under special authorization." I copied the file, printed it, burned it to a drive, and hid it. Because I knew the moment they realised it was still out there, I'd be next. I told myself I was doing this for justice, for Lucia, for Leah. But the truth, I was doing it for me, because every night I heard her voice. Even though I never heard her speak, because every time Kayla smiled, I saw the ghost of the girl who gave her life without saying yes. And because someone needed to remember her when the hospital chose to forget. The next morning I went to speak to the detective. I had the file, the drive, everything. But when I got to the precinct, he was gone. Transferred. No forwarding info. No case number found. Like he never came. They weren't just cleaning up mistakes. They were removing memory. One by one. And that meant Clara was in danger, so was Leah, and so was I. I always thought when the truth came out, I'd feel lighter, freer, but the truth doesn't set you free. It destroys you, piece by piece. And sometimes you have to let yourself burn just to make sure someone else survives the smoke. The morning I leaked the file, the sun was already up. Birds chirping. A normal Tuesday, and I destroyed everything. I sent the drive anonymously to the local news, to the police, to Leah. I wrote no explanation, no defence, just 3 words. She was alive. I knew they'd find me, knew what would follow, but I wasn't ready for how fast it happened. That afternoon, I was called into the administrator's office. Not Halverson this time. He wasn't there. They said he was on leave, but his shadow was all over the room. They asked about data theft, patient confidentiality, ethics violations. They used big words, words that meant nothing compared to what we'd done. I didn't deny it. I just asked one question. "Where's Clara Ruiz?" They didn't answer. I tried calling her. No reply. I drove to her apartment, door wide open. Inside, nothing. No signs of struggle, no note. Just her daughter's school drawing taped to the fridge. A red crayon heart with a line running through it. They didn't just erase Lucia, they were erasing anyone who knew. I had to disappear fast. I cleared my apartment, left my badge, my name, my entire life behind. And for a few weeks, I lived in the noise. Bus terminals, cheap motels, unmarked payphones. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. Lucia, that blink, those fingers twitching, that moment before I became a thief. And then one day I got an email. Anonymous. Encrypted. But I knew the writing. It was Leah, 3 words. I found her. I read it 10 times. Not her body, not a grave. Her. Turns out, Lucia had a twin. That's why the organ matched so perfectly. Not just a sibling, a mirror. That's also why they tagged her unidentified. Her records didn't match her DNA. She'd been in the system once before, as Leah, as a mistake. So when Leah started asking questions, they thought it was a glitch, a ghost. They never knew. 2 girls existed. And Lucia? She wasn't dead. They had taken her organs, but not all of them, not her brain, not her memories. She'd been moved, sedated, disfigured, but somehow alive. A remote clinic, private, funded through hospital shell accounts. She escaped during a fire. No one reported it, no one looked except Leah. I saw her, months later, in a small town across the state line. Leah introduced us. Lucia looked at me. And for a second, I thought she remembered. She didn't speak, she just held the necklace, the same one Clara described. Faded, LS, she was alive, damaged, changed, but undeniably alive. And I was no one, just the man who watched her die and helped make it happen. I couldn't stay, didn't belong in her story anymore, but I left her something, a photo of Kayla, smiling, holding a bear, alive. On the back, I wrote, "This life was never mine to take. But I'm trying to give it back. They'll come for me eventually. I know that now, but I've made peace with the fire. Because Lucia is still out there, breathing, healing, remembering. And even if the world forgets what we did, I won't. Her heart beat inside another child, but her soul survived inside herself.